Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Origin Story, where we dive into how your favorite YouTubers got started and where they are going. I'm Mike.
And I'm JP, and our guest today is Steven Cusato and his channel, Not Another Cooking Show. Steven, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Excited to have you.
Yeah, I'm sure JP is much more excited because he is a food enthusiast to have a fantastic chef on the show. It'll be really exciting for him to talk about food stuff. I could eat the same thing every day, but I was very thrilled watching your videos because it gave me a lot of ideas. My wife is a fantastic cook, so she is very excited for this episode as well.
Yep, she'll take to it.
100%. Yeah, for those who don't know our guest today, Steven Cusato is the man behind the channel Not Another Cooking Show. He is breaking the mold of traditional cooking shows on the internet with exciting recipes and food hacks. We talked about this a little bit before recording. The pasta knowledge that you have, and just like all the little hacks that you had about making it the perfect pasta chip. I was blown away by that one. That was awesome to watch, that little food hack. So tune into his channel every Wednesday for a new video. His 287 videos have been watched over 40 million times and created a community of over 550,000 subscribers and growing every day. Rapidly. Outside of the kitchen, Steven is a branding expert and social media boss, which we'll talk about his past and how he got into the YouTube world. Check out his Patreon and social medias for exclusive content and recipe ideas, as well as his website. They'll all be in the bio below. Your taste buds will 100% thank you. So, Steven, thank you so much for being on the show, and I really look forward to learning about your past, present, and future.
Thanks for having me. What a great intro.
I try my best. It's hard to break down a YouTube channel into 5 sentences. So
you did a good job.
Thank you.
He's a pro. We're happy to have you, man.
Yeah.
Always good to talk to, the cooks of YouTube, which is the, I would put it as it's the cookbook. It's the cookbooks where the next page is just written about every other week and you get to dive into something new. So it's always fun to turn the page and see what you guys are doing. So I appreciate you coming on.
Do you guys have a lot of cooks on?
Just like Gordon Ramsay and a couple other guys.
Yeah. He is a YouTuber now. Gordon Ramsay is a YouTuber.
He is.
It's tough. We try and keep it diverse for everyone who comes so that they can learn about new YouTubers that they might not know about. But definitely I want to dive more into the cooking world because I think it's such a really interesting spectrum on YouTube. It's growing, especially with the divide of breaking away from TV and traditional cooking shows, which I feel like they've all become pretty much the same. They're like a new version of Chopped, where someone instead of a basket, they're getting 50 baskets over 10 episodes, all these kind of different ways. Where on YouTube, it's so much different, and you can kind of do whatever you want because there's no production crew. You are the person behind the camera. So,
You're not drinking the juice of 30 years of success at the Food Network to just recycle ideas.
Yeah.
You allow people to kind of bring whatever they feel, and whatever, it's like, the cream just rises to the top. So it's like a way of crowdsourcing new talent in the industry. I feel like, and it's like, I would watch, I do, I've always loved Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives and a few shows that they had, but I don't even have cable anymore. I don't even know how to watch a show if I wanted to on Food Network. So it's when you can have so much for free, right? From so many great people who've just figured out how to do it on their own. It's hard to even consider the other option, I'm a consumer of YouTube as much as I am a YouTuber.
Yeah. Well, I think what I like too about what you're doing is, especially with the cooks on YouTube and some of these, channels like yours, is it's not a syndicated television show that's pushing it down your throat, whether you like it or not. And that's the only source of, food content that you get. It's someone like yourself where, if you build it, they will come mentality, which is fantastic. So it's like, you kind of you get to do your own style. There's nobody telling you what to do. And it's, hey, if you like,
it's a little different though. It's not,
then show up.
It's not if you build it, they will come anymore because of the way that social media has changed. Like YouTube is a lot more like an Instagram or a TikTok is now, where it's, like I have 550,000 subscribers. Maybe 5 or 10% of them are viewing my videos. You know what I mean? So it's not even a subscriber game anymore so much as it is a views game. And how do you just hack viewership? And so what's really hard is like where like Netflix has the same problem, but they have teams of people who are always changing thumbnails and testing new ways of presenting you to content and how to figure out how to suggest you things you need to watch. YouTube is doing that, but as a single creator, you've sort of got to figure out, you got to change thumbnails, you got to A/B test, you got to try new titles, and like you really have to fight and plan and strategize to get those views, which is unique.
And that's something
what I showed you, what I just said was what we call the easy version, where you just look at a channel and you go, oh, he's just cooking. He's just making food. And that's the point. And that's what we're going to get into. That's what we're going to talk about. I think that's the importance of this is let's back it up. Let's talk about how we got there. You know what I mean? Obviously, you know, I don't think there's a lot of people who just took to cooking early or started off early. So I think this is a kind of a good point to draw it back and to say, like, you know, Stephen, like, what was it like? You know, what was it like for you growing up? I mean, let's talk about, you know, let's talk about where you grew up and let's talk about how you built into what you're doing now. But let's dial the ears back a couple of years and I mean, you're a kid where you're around food. We talk about, you know, Italian, you know, go ahead.
I grew up in Westchester, just outside New York City. Food was like probably as important in my life as it was any kid. You know, it wasn't like I was, you know, tossing together stuff as a kid and messing around in the kitchen. I think the first job I ever wanted to be, was a director, actually. I think I was like really into Spielberg
film
and like all the, you know, Jurassic Park and all these movies are coming out when I was growing up. So that was the first thing I kind of wanted to do. And, you know, the holidays, I would always like hang in the kitchen, you know, bake cookies, stuff like that. And the biggest food influence, ironically, from what we were just talking about, was the Food Network, right? When this was before reality TV and competition. I mean, they had Iron Chef. Like, I would fall asleep to Iron Chef Japan every night, overdubbed in English, you know, and that's what I fell asleep to. Like, this was at a time when the Food Network wasn't even a network. It was essentially like the YouTubers today thrown into a network, right? People, like, you know, the sets were falling apart. They weren't high budget. There were people who had never been on camera before, just doing their own thing. It was very similar to the start of like these food channels on YouTube. And so I would watch all that stuff, How to Boil Water, Grilling and Chilling with Bobby Flay.
How old were you when you were watching these?
It was, you know, there's 30 channels on TV growing up. So out of those 30, there were maybe 5 you were interested in. And, you know, if you watched cartoons on Fox, at the end of the day, they weren't playing them. So you were watching food stuff. You had characters like Yen Can Cook. He was just like this flamboyant Asian chef who was like the most fun. It was like before Emerald really was a thing. He was like the most energetic and fun cooking show that there was. And it was just like, you know, all these things sort of remember, you know, Alton Brown, of course, who is like a producer. He's essentially a YouTuber. All of the shots YouTubers use in the food world are Alton Brown shots.
Yeah.
So, you know what I mean? So it's like, it's so funny when you gave credit to somebody who's like a YouTuber and like young kids who are just like, oh, this person invented it. And they just have no historical context to how far back some of these things go, that, you know, there's just nothing new, right? We're all doing derivative work of stuff that exists in some ways. So I think it's just interesting to like remember and go back and realize like somebody started all this stuff. And, you know, people may give Food Network a bad rap today, but, you know, some of my earliest TV memories were those shows, and they had an impact on me. And Jamie Oliver when he was young. He was a really impactful guy for me. He was just this young guy who just like, I remember him cooking outside on like a wood cutting board on like a fire he built in his garden outside. You know what I mean? Like, it was just a really cool like vibe.
Well, the shows had
I was like,
they had different heart.
And it was hard for me to like to distinguish food as anything special in my life because, it was one of 30 channels. Everybody would watch it. It was a thing. Everybody ate all the time. There was no like nothing crazy that kind of stood out to me until I got older. I went in to become a sports guy when I was in high school. I was kind of like,
well, that's kind of my point. Is so food is inherently, in my opinion, first it's a necessity, then it's creative. It's like it's very creative. Were you also creative pretty young growing up?
Creative. I don't think people would really describe me as creative in like the typical sense. I was a very introverted kid, so probably in my head, I was creating like games with my action figures. I was probably doing something in a creative way like that. Right. I was very much able to like get out of reality in a lot of ways when I was a kid. You know what I mean? Where it was like I build a world around my wrestling characters. I was obsessed with wrestling for a while. Yes. And I had every action figure with like the there was this like WWE like ring.
Yeah, the
like,
blue one.
Yeah,
with cardboard tables that you could smash. And
absolutely.
It was that kind of stuff. I would just get lost in it. I remember things like creepy crawlers. Yeah, I would sit down in my desk with like a lamp and create these creepy crawler concoctions. Like toys were
creepy
crazy
crawlers was sick. Creepy crawl. I mean, that's baking. That's baking, anyways, right? Yeah, there. Remember those things? That was sick.
One thing I was always dying for was an easy bake oven, though.
Yeah, and you couldn't have it because you didn't want to get beat up. You know what I mean? Unless
you want to talk about sexist stuff? Like they made it women colors. So God forbid any guy wanted an easy bake oven.
And you could really make cookies.
Shame. Yeah,
you could make real cookies.
My sister had one, and I made some of the cookies. They were. And I'm also definitely on this podcast. I'm the worst chef here. I'm the worst chef in my household. I've been the worst chef since my whole life. Maybe it was me, but the cookies were atrocious. So
it's probably you. It's probably also nostalgia creeping in. There's probably a bit of nostalgia creeping in. I will say, cool. I think the creepy crawlers couldn't you eat the creepy crawlers too? Or were those?
Yeah, I thought. Yeah. I mean, those were kind of garbage tasting.
Oh
but
man,
they were fun.
They were like they weren't Haribo or whatever gummy bears. That's for sure. No, they were. That was some nickel
toxic
bullshit.
That was some toxic shit.
Oh yeah, I'm taking that. That's cut 10, 15 years off my life. I don't know how many I went through. Also fire. Pretty big fire hazard when you look at it. No,
absolutely.
Well, I think what I'm getting at is it's funny. It's funny that you say that you're like creative in your mind, like thinking of these own ideas. Because I find cooking now is like a sanctuary for me, where it's like a getaway moment for me. Get away from work, get away from whatever. Have a glass of wine, have a whiskey or something, and cook. I find it as a getaway. I almost see a correlation there of like, maybe you don't have to be an extrovert or an introvert or whatever you might want to put a label on it to cook. It's kind of your own oasis. It's kind of what you see. So I think that's almost an interesting connection between the two of those.
Yeah, I mean, the older I get, the more I notice how like present I am. Like, I don't do a lot of like social media posts as much as other people because like you need moments to be present, right? Like I needed to absorb what I'm doing and understand it. And it's like, when I meet a creator in person, like my instinct is not to make content with them. It's to get to know you. Like, let's like have a moment, like so much about this world is content. Oh, you want to collab? I don't know you. You know what I mean? Like, let's become friends. Like, let's start on a real, authentic place and then figure that out. You know what I mean? So
agreed.
It's tough though. And I can tell you I just had my first kid a year and a half ago, and that perspective of trying to have a present moment it gets more and more, apparent to me every day. Like when I go to the park, I see parents on their phone or something. I was at the park with my son today. I'm like, I take pictures of my son. I send it to my wife because she's in a meeting from 5 to 6 on every Wednesday. But like, then we're playing, we're doing stuff, we're doing things where you got to break away from social media. It's definitely the most addictive thing that's been introduced to society that we know.
Yeah. I think it's helpful when you do it for a living, because like I find now, I'm doing this 3 years, and it's like I'll sit to myself and think like I couldn't stomach filming me making this sandwich right now, or like just throwing together, like some people, they're like, I'm making a lunch, I might as well film it. Like me, I'm like, I can't stomach the thought of like thinking of staging this. You know what I mean? Like
faking
I'm at a point where it's like you need balance, and I can't drown myself in these edits. Like I want to live a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
I think there's something in your background that pulls this thread a little bit there, because there's people who have the thought of it's just YouTube, right? Like who cares? And we were talking to the guys from Side B who produce Car Trek, and Ed Bolian and Tavarish and those guys, they all are like, oh, it's just YouTube, because they don't care. Like, oh, screw up on a car, put it on YouTube. That's the content they create. But the guys from Side B, and I think from your past, and we'll talk about that in a second, you have a very production oriented past. So you thinking about making that sandwich, it's not just, oh, I'm gonna make this sandwich, I'm gonna make it sloppy, who cares? You're like, I got to make the lighting look right. I got to put up the boards. I got to make everything look good, because that's my brand. I'm putting out there. In there. Yeah, I got to make everything right. Where that's very apparent through there. So I want to talk a little bit about your past. So Bronxville High School, beautiful school. Looked it up, graduated there, and then you go to Fairfield University, where you choose a marketing degree. So in either high school or college, did you take any creative courses? Was there a cooking class in high school? Was there a
cooking class? Cooking class was home ec in middle school, which was, besides tech, home ec and tech, far and away the most fun and best classes you could take in school or education.
I mean, lights out.
Yeah.
Game time, making cookies with chicks during the day. I mean, what a good time. I mean,
we had to make a bake sale. So we had to start a business, right? Yeah. Figure out how to cook. It's the best. That's the best lesson.
Hashtag a YouTube tutorial.
Exactly. All of education is encompassed in a bake sale. You know what I mean? Like there's just so much about it. And now I don't know if schools even do home ec. It's absurd.
It's probably like it's probably like an insurance liability or something, you know?
And I mean, we would sew, and
I was just going to say that.
Dangerous. Right? It feels like it's dangerous, but for now, every kid is like so coddled now. God forbid he might screw up or not pay attention to instructions, which you should. If you pay attention and do it right, you're not going to hurt yourself. But like at the end of the day, these are skills. I know how to sew from middle school today. You know what I mean? Like, do you know how many? No man under the age of 20 right now has any idea how to even thread a needle through a pin. You know what I mean?
100% not.
No, they'll find a dry cleaner on Yelp quicker than I can, but I think I'll get the problem done quicker.
I think sewing is the number one skill I learned in home ec, because every time a button falls off or things like that, I know it, and I keep a sewing kit in my DOP kit, because like when you're on trips or things like that, that's when your button falls off.
And I think the thing was, like, I remember one of the things you had to do in home ec was sew flannel pajamas.
Yep.
And I remember I did a 2-piece with the hat and like a Scrooge hat. And I remember like there was a satisfaction in completing this thing. Like you're
talking about learning something and completing a task.
Exactly. And it was like the thing about tech, right? I welded this like glass table with iron. So I was literally had a blowtorch welding and bending iron. Like this shit's dangerous, but it was so satisfying when I brought home a table to my parents, and they're like, "How the fuck did you make this?"
And you know why this is so? You know why this is so important too? Visual learners never caught a break when I was younger. Like being a visual learner, it's just like, well, this guy just can't pay attention to class. And it's like, all right, well, put me in a wood shop, auto shop, home ec, whatever you want to do. Like visual learners do not perform well in other classes. You bring up a great point, because all these things where you get these gratifications out of learning something, doing it, and then completing it, and having something physical to hand. I mean, that's a visual learner's dream.
You know, dude, I remember, to your point, I remember sitting in math class. It must have been in 3rd or 4th grade. And there was this horrible activity that the teacher would make us do, where we'd get up and stand in the back of the class, and she would give us a math problem, and we'd have to figure out how to do it in our head. And this is my night. That is my single weakest ability.
Thanks
and
for embarrassing me.
I would remember it being my turn and them asking me the problem. It could have been even a simple thing, but it was the pressure, and on top like that, I'm like dyslexic and a visual learner. I would stare up and nothing would happen. You know what I mean? It was just like such a hard moment as a kid. And I remember moments like that. It was just like in that moment, you feel dumb. You know what I mean? Like,
well, and it puts you down, and that's what it shouldn't do. It's just that's just not it for like visual learners. Like that's such a, and it's almost like the teacher's like, gotcha. Like the teacher got a 1-up for being smart at math, which has always annoyed me.
Well, and the teacher's like, that's another day for the teacher, but for like a kid in middle school, that moment is their year. They don't, that's like a defining moment in their thought process at that time. So it's got to be difficult to come back from something like that, Yeah.
I stay away from numbers. I stay away from spreadsheets. I was having a conversation with my friend today who has like a great spreadsheet formula for focaccia. And I'm just like so jealous. I'm so jealous of people who are organized like that, because there's so much benefit to that, especially when it comes to making recipes and stuff like that. I just can't. I avoid numbers at all costs. And even with my recipes, whenever it comes to like measurements and stuff like that, I'm trying to get a lot better with it now, but it's like an aversion I have, especially with measurements. It's just like, I want to figure out a way to teach recipes and to write them without making you submissive to particular amounts of ingredients.
Well, and now your channel makes that you're hitting everything that you want to learn from in your channel. You're showing everything and talking over it. So all you have to do is listen, follow instructions visually to get that. So, but cooking,
I mean, baking, yes, you need to be a little more perfect.
Yeah.
But when cooking is like tying a bow tie. The beauty of a bow tie is kind of the imperfections that come with the bow tie. Right. It's kind of your own flair. It's kind of how you tied it, or the imperfections of it that makes it yours.
It's also literally impossible for me to write a recipe that actually, if you picked random people and made them read it without watching a video, would be able to successfully make. Because ingredients, like do you know how in depth you have to get with what ingredient you did and how you cut it, and all these things that make a difference, the type of stove you use versus the type of stove I have, kind of pans you have.
Yeah.
Are you in a different altitude? Like it will drive you insane to think about all of these things. So it's like, the idea is not to nail the recipe. It's to nail the teaching of the steps and what you need to be thinking at each step of the way. So it's like when I'm thinking about making recipes and I'm making them in beforehand, and I'm allowing myself to be present while I'm cooking them, and I'm trying to replicate problems or preempt comments that I would get if I wrote or made a lazy recipe. Yeah. You know what I mean? So it's like, I try and make my videos to answer the questions that some random commenter or a collection of commenters would probably have.
You're filming it with the process in mind of, I'm going to answer the questions before they pop up. Like the person watches like, well, I don't know about that. And you're like, well, the reason I did that is I tapped the flour down, make sure it's compact, and I got a full cup, or something like that. Right.
Most people will just say something like, add 300 milliliters of this, then do this, add that, and that. And it so glosses over everything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? 100%. It was like when I would watch cooking shows, like Food Network things, like I didn't learn how to cook because I went home and made like a Rachel Ray recipe from her cookbook. It was when I watched these people actually cook, there might be this one thing they said or did in a 30-minute episode that almost everyone else probably would have just written off as nothing. But for me, I was like, oh, that might have like changed the way I looked at something or did something that would then be like, and then you stack like hundreds of those moments or thousands of those moments over years and years and years. And you start to realize like cooking is all about these little things, right?
Yeah.
So it's like if I could pepper in all of these little tidbits, these nuggets in each video, then it makes it worth somebody who's come to know me and trust me that, oh, there's going to be these little things I'm going to pick up.
It reminds me of like, because it's a skill set that you have to learn, you know, those collages that it's like, it'll be, it'll be like Tony Soprano and it's made up of like 10,000 other Tony Soprano photos. It's like, you have to learn all the little bits to make the big picture work. And if you don't know them and you try to go straight to it, it's going to look like shit.
Yeah.
Like you're
I mean, at the end of the day, it's experience. It's knowing what could happen and being able to plan for it and adjust. And it's a thing that,
it's done it before.
There are recipes I've made my whole life, but when I'm making them now in my mindset, I'm having revelations about them, or just like an understanding about it that I never actively did the exercise to thinking about. That like now that I am thinking about it, I'm like, oh, this is a way you could explain this that makes sense to people. And it's almost like, not using the esoteric language of the kitchen or the chef's world. It's breaking it down. Like, is there a more relatable way for me to compare this to something that somebody who just doesn't hang out with chefs or cooks or in the culture, like, so that anybody can understand? You know what I mean? I would remember reading cookbooks and just like back in the day when there was very little pictures, it was still expensive. They would just say all of these things. Some recipes are like 3 sentences. Like, I was like, what is this? It made me just think like recipes were just inherently flawed and that you cannot, it's literally impossible to create a perfect recipe.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about other inherently flawed situations. So you went to college to Fairfield University. No, I'm just kidding. But really, let's talk about like decision making. I'll just talk about college in general, because it's so funny when we talk to people who are now successful in YouTube, how many people they've gone through with college, and they, there's this decision tree that happens, and it typically happens right around college or in college or after college. So you went to Fairfield University. And another tough decision to make. So you chose a marketing degree, correct?
Yeah.
So were there other options? Was there digital media? Was there anything like that? Why
no digital media? Why not? Usually everyone I knew was a finance guy. Everyone was going to finance. If you went to Fairfield and you had a finance degree, you got a pretty sick job immediately.
Yeah, in the city.
And I graduated and got a pretty shit job in marketing.
So did I just trash Fairfield University for saying it's a? I'm just kidding.
Well, no, I mean for what Fairfield was great for a lot of reasons and shitty for a lot of reasons. But if you were going to be in finance, what a great place to go. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like you were just you were a great pedigree. So
legacy. Yeah,
I think the accounting major had 100%. Job placement right out of college.
Wow.
Because it was just like, it's not a desirable career. But
so you go marketing.
I go marketing. My dad, 35 years in advertising. So that was just like a impulse. And I felt more like I was of the creative vein than finance numbers.
I can't. Accounting is your.
I'm with you there.
You're full on nightmare. Like
I did
terrible.
I did chemistry for 2.5 years and then switched around a bunch. And then I was like, I'm just doing marketing because I think I'm creative and I think I can figure this out. So
but Fairfield was great because I went to the business school and it required like they had a core, right? So I had to do a 101, 102 of accounting, finance, advertising, marketing, every aspect of business, right? Yeah. So it was enabled me to understand a business world and approach things from a business mindset.
I'm sure that's helpful now that you are an entrepreneur and you are building your own business. You at least know, like, okay, here's a here's basic accounting. Here's how I can make sure that I have the right cash flows and things like that for my business. Am I spending too much? Am I investing too much? How is it going? And all those kind of best principles are going to help you now.
Business marketing.
Well, it makes you understand, like, I'm not good with numbers, like I said, but like I have very simple ways of looking at my business to understand things and how to manage money. Because cash flow has always been the death of me up until recently. And so now that I have cash flow, it's like, how do I protect myself against times in which I would struggle? Right. Back in the day, I used to be like, God, this 30, 40-day billing cycle, I need this money now. It's like I don't have to worry about the billing cycle of these people. It's like you've gotten ahead and there's a nice flow and, now your business is running. But there's, I talk to creators now, they're collecting money as personal income. You know what I mean? Like they're not even thinking of setting up as a business. They're not running their operations as a business, and you're behind a lot. And you start right off the bat, you're behind. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's just like it's helped me in a way to approach things in a professional way and to think about the future, right? Like, how do once I realized cash flow is the big thing. It's not about making money. It's about having money when you need it right now. Yeah. And so that becomes like the pillar of a business. You start to really understand like, oh, this is really the key to a business. Have a healthy cash flow coming in, coming out, spend less than you make and keep growing. It's like, if you can just do those simple things, you can run a business successfully. And so,
hard practices to learn.
I've had failures, but you know what I mean? Like I've learned cash, like I said, my biggest cash flow failure was my food truck, where we started the business with, like, we had $50,000 that my mom gave me from cashing in my grandpa's life insurance plan. And we applied that to a food truck, and we opened up the doors on a shoestring budget, first day of serving with like $500 in the bank. And you can't run a food business if you don't have cash reserves. So from day one, we're climbing out of a hole that we can never get out of.
Yeah.
And that was a lesson of a lifetime.
Well, I want to ask a different question, but I want to pull on this right here that you said, the girl with cheese truck, because I think it is a big part of who you are and that entrepreneurial drive, right? Because you were working and then you start this food truck. And where did you get that? First off, where did you get an idea to want to do a food truck other than maybe watching Chef, the movie or something like that? And
No. This was way before Chef.
Okay. And so why did you start a food truck? Where does that entrepreneurial drive come from that drove you to do this?
Well, I think I'd always kind of had it in me. Like I just wanted to do something. I was working in a kind of shitty advertising agency for a while, and like I just didn't respect it. Like,
who were they? Go ahead and name them on the podcast. No,
I would too.
Oh, don't do it. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. But they just didn't respect young talent.
Yeah.
And I just, as a result, didn't respect the modern corporation at the time, because they don't care. They don't train you. They don't give a shit about you. They won't give you a raise. And if they do, it's dick. You know what I mean? Like there was just there were no opportunities coming my way that got me excited. And so I had to create my own. And when you have faith in yourself, and I was probably a shyer type, especially that age. So I wasn't the kind of guy busting through your door being like, hey man, let's go get them. You know what I mean? Like I was the type that would like put my head down and work, and I would do good work, and I wouldn't make much noise. And those people kind of fly under the radar, and it's hard to make moves. So
well, yeah, they come into your office or they go into your bullpen and they're like, hey, we want to congratulate you for doing good work. Here's $1,000 for the year. We're going to put $1,000 on their salary. Like, oh, sick. You're going to pay me 17 cents more. Like, that's great. Yeah. Sick.
I mean, to be honest, the thing that got me to just get up and leave was after 3 years of I got like I started at like a $30,000 or $28,000 salary. And I think by the end I was up to like 31 or 32. And I kept asking for a raise and they kept saying, hang in there another 6 months. They were not doing good. They had a 90s heyday. And then in the 2000s, they were living off the prime of their heyday. So there was just a slow decline. Right. So, and I was like telling them like social media is the thing. We got to get on social media. And they gave me like this kind of job that they didn't put resources behind to cultivate that. And it was just like, whatever. It was like these guys, advertising is a dead industry at that point. And this was like 2008. And at the time, food trucks were a thing. Roy Choi had Kogi in LA. That was huge. And I was like, I spent a lot of time in the bookstores reading cookbooks, and I saw one that was like 150 grilled cheese recipes. And I was like, shit, I'm going to start the first grilled cheese recipe in the food truck in the country. And so I was working at the time at this agency. And
what year was this? Because first food truck, grilled cheese food truck. I mean, this would be a pinnacle moment in the United States.
It was like 2009, 2010.
Okay.
Okay. I end up starting the food truck in 2011. So I'm moonlighting at the job, trying to start this business, trying to get Parks Department permits to operate legally in New York City. And we ended up getting it. And then I remember my boss, who was like he was like a young creative. He was like the interactive creative director who was kind of like never did anything and was kind of like nobody respected, but he thought very highly of himself and worked really hard. He would get like an eye strain from staring at a screen for so long. It's like, I didn't know people who do that. Like I stared at screens all day and never had an eye pop like thing. Anyway, I came into his office. I asked for a raise and he flipped it around on me and it just took me aback and was like, actually, you need to work more hours and really prove yourself or like give your 2 weeks notice. And I respected this guy so little and was so pissed off that I just went home for the weekend. This was on a Friday and came back into work on Monday and just didn't even acknowledge what he said. And I was like, okay, I'm going to quit on my terms, not
That's
because
hilarious.
He told me to. I was still waiting on approval for the food truck. So I was like, well, as soon as I get approval, I'm quitting. And I remember I wrote a letter. I put it in an envelope and I marched into my boss's office and just threw the letter down in the office. I was like, if I'm going to quit my only office job ever, I'm going to do it like as dramatically as I see fit. And
I like that.
And then I walked out and I started.
That was your desk flip.
Yeah,
that was your desk flip. At this point, had you even been filming? Had you been cooking? Like, had you been doing any of this on your own personal side of things? Like, had anything that's kind of boiling up to the top of YouTube even started yet?
I had a food blog at the time called The Food Freak, where I was like learning. This was while I'm working in advertising.
This is your kind of side hustle.
Training myself.
Yeah.
Not a hustle. I wasn't making money. It was me. It was like, how do I learn how to cook and show people like the journey? And my whole thing is, as a visual learner, I had a camera. I think I got for like Christmas or something. So I was like, I take like every photo every step of the way, like a video would. If you imagine my video, except I would take, instead of a motion picture,
it's a cookbook.
I was every photo. It was step by step of everything. I had high quality, nice photos. Like whatever the server was for the blog at the time was just blowing up because I was just throwing like 50 to 100 photos per post for each thing I was making. And, I don't think it got really views or anything, but my idea was like, I'll build a brand and a following, and I'll try and launch a food truck off the back of it. And so started the Food Freaks. It was a Food Freaks grilled cheese, and that started that journey. So I was kind of preparing for the food truck in advance, but I don't know how much it really helped. It must have. I think what I found is when I had the food truck, I just had a culinary sense, and I was able to sort of.
That's you're in the kitchen.
Yeah, I was adjusting my brother and the other chef we had, these are great chefs, but I was like adjusting them. I was like, I think it needs a little acidity. And they would be like, I think you're right. And I would start to like lean into my gut and just sort of be like, this is my fucking business. I'm going to say what I feel. And regardless of whether like I'm justified or if I have the experience to say it, I was developing my palate and I was trying to create a type of comfort food. You know, I had chefs who were trying to bring fancy shit, and I was trying to bring the comfort and this relatability, especially to grilled cheeses. You don't want it to go too far out there to a place where you can't recognize it.
Or it's not a grilled cheese.
It still needs to be recognized as a grilled cheese. So my job was to make sure we fit that mold. And so yeah, I mean, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it was just a natural sense. And once I was put in the environment, I flourished, or what, or if I was, subtly absorbing things my whole life that brought me to this point.
It sounds
like
product of the environment.
Yeah, you're honing in on all the shows, watching, falling asleep to Iron Chef, falling asleep to these things, all those things about talking about what it needs, right? They always say those little keywords. It needs this because of this, right? I'm putting in, this very well could be completely wrong. I'm putting in like caramelized onions. I need to offset it with this or this. I'm going to put in this beef, which has a lot of fat. I need to put in acidity to kind of cut the fat. And so all of those maybe little key things that you picked up, maybe subconsciously, are now coming out through creativity, and you're seeing like your business grow. So you're like, I'm putting my brand and my stamp on this, which you watched a failing brand happen, and you saw maybe the pitfalls of that, and you're picking them up and saying, they did this. They just sat on their coattails. I could do just grilled cheese, right? I could do grilled cheese and soup, and I could do a grilled cheese with provolone. I could do a grilled cheese with cheddar, and you could come and get it, right? But you didn't want to be that. You wanted to build outside of it. It's interesting to see.
I wanted to build something unique that had a heart and soul and character in an area that, I thought was cool, which was Fort Greene, Brooklyn. And I know if we just had good food, I could make them love our story. Yeah. And I could be, and since I was in the truck, my brother was kind of prepping the food for the truck. And then another partner was doing the operations, planning catering stuff, doing side work that we would do. And so I would sometimes be just left as the only person manning the truck. So I got a lot of being able to cater to build a cult following of my neighborhood. I got to know what people were doing. I knew on the corner, this guy had black mold in his apartment, and he's got to go away for a week while they get built. You know what I mean? And the dog walker over here, the dog walker disappeared. Turns out he's a drug dealer. He just vanished one day. You know what I mean? We knew him as a dog walker, and then one day he's a drug dealer and he disappears. Like, he's a lovable guy in the block, but like,
I think he was a drug dealer before he was a dog walker. I'm just going to say it out front.
Of course.
Dude,
but it was like, it was my love to like, what I loved about it was like to get to provide service and hospitality out of a lowly food cart. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And to build meaning in a neighborhood and get to, and provide this kind of like utility to the neighborhood. And at the same time, got to love like the chaos, the crazy controlled chaos of food service. I'm bouncing around in the truck, flipping sandwiches and tossing cheese to make sandwiches, like in sort of like a dance while trying to put a smile on my face and talk to customers. And it's one of those things where it's like, I'm not a big multitasker, but it was like that balance and dance of all of those things was really impactful for me. It like gave me a lot of confidence to be able to do things in situations that I found were tricky. You know what I mean? To have the confidence to be able to pull it off.
It's like the business version of the guy that plays 20 instruments at once. You know what I mean? Like, it's the guy. It's like you got to do the drums. You got to do this. You got to triangle up here. You got to do this. And it's like you also got to be the face of it. You also got to be putting on that show.
How I feel now.
You got to be doing. It's like you got to be.
I'm chopping with a camera in my mouth.
Well, that's a good transition.
I have two questions.
Okay.
Yeah, I have to. Well, first, I have two questions around the food truck. One of them's a question. One of them is, I'll just start with me, is now that we think back to it, we talk about grilled cheese. The reason that I am good at cooking, and the reason that I am maybe, I don't know, I wouldn't call I guess I've been a sous chef and all that stuff throughout my life. But the reason that I'm good at cooking, the reason I do that is because I originally was just literally just Kraft singles and Wonder Bread, making grilled cheese in a pan with some butter, golden brown, perfect for me and my sister. We were hanging out. We were latchkey kids. What do you call it? Where we just, we'd go home, we'd make some grilled cheese, we do the whole thing. And I think that's actually where I got like the cooking perfection from, was from that. And I think it carried on into later in life, whether that was, subconscious or not. But also second question, the day you launched on that grilled cheese truck, how were the grilled cheeses?
They were good. I mean,
pretty dynamite.
We did our due diligence. Like, I was not
like grilled cheese on the first day.
They got better, right? We really, there were some things, right? Like using strips of bacon, no good. We got to dice them up. So you got to
cut the bacon up so you're not pulling. I get you, buddy. Chop it up, break it up.
But here's the thing: is strips are easy to
it's
to
quick.
see how much you're using.
No waste.
Yeah, we're talking about.
You could be smashing, $5 of bacon in a sandwich if your guy crumbled. So if you have strips, I can see 2 strips, tear them in half, and use 3. And so we were like, we can get away with using 3. You're trying to save money because we're using good quality ingredients.
Yeah.
So at the time, you're like, how do we create what we want with a way where we can make money? And so you refine, and
as you pull the thread,
you get to where you want.
As you pull the thread, as Michael says, the sweater unravels as you start to learn a little bit more. But okay, good grilled cheeses, and also grilled cheese. Let's just advocate that maybe that's the best way to start cooking.
I don't disagree. I love so why did someone get to YouTube? That's the whole process that we want to uncover. And it makes every time we do this at this point before we go to YouTube, the realization is there, right? The base for your channel is easy to understand picture of how to make food and a community. And that stems from your blog that you created, which was the visual steps, which comes from your past of being a visual learner. And you want to bring that to the community, which is the world, right? And so now you loved your community of Brooklyn. Well, I guess, what is it? Fort Pines?
Fort Greene. Downtown Brooklyn.
Shout out Fort Greene.
You love Fort Greene, and now you're building a larger scale Fort Greene. And you talk about this community you've created of 555,000 subscribers as of a couple minutes ago. And so it really makes so much sense. So you take the digital version of food, and now you start making videos. But why did you move from the Food Freaks food truck and blog to creating video content? And was that because you started producing content on the side for another business? Is that like how you learned those practices of video? Or how did you move to the YouTube platform? And when was you were like, hey, I need to start a YouTube channel?
Well, I think it all started, like, I always knew content was like a thing. While I was on the food truck, my biggest frustration was like, I want to make content. Like, I want to market the business and grow it. I had a
real quick. Do you have a year on the food truck? Like, just it helps.
2011 to 2014 ish.
Okay, that helps frame a reference of like YouTube history. You know what I mean? Is why we asked that. Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
Like my goal was to like create. I wanted to reinvent the shopping cart, and it turned out I wanted to make the Amazon cart that they just came out.
This is my guy.
and license.
This is my guy.
Yeah. I wanted to eliminate checkout lines and create a cart that was the checkout, and then license it to all the major retailers, and then create like a supermarket.
This is my guy.
But I literally thought that's 10 years away, and by then a giant corporation will do it, and Amazon would go and do it. So thank God I didn't try and do something crazy like that. But the blog was content, right? Like I saw content was coming, and I just didn't have the resources or the technology at the time. Wasn't cheap enough. Computer, even if you wanted to do video, your computer would crash if you tried to edit on it.
Yeah.
And so when the food truck, I closed the food truck. I got reached out from an old friend in advertising and PR, and she was like, "We got this brand, Tribe Hummus. Can you stage photos, stage the food, and take photos of it?" And no job would hire me. And I was like, shit, yeah, I'll do that. Like, I think I got paid $200 to make a crudité platter with American flags in it for 4th of July that I shot
sick.
on my iPhone for like $250. And I was like, oh my God, can I make money doing this?
That should be the background of your YouTube channel. That's the banner. That's a banner logo. No, I'm just kidding.
Terrible photo. I mean, man, once you start to learn and evolve in a space, like everything you do previously just becomes garbage, right? And so as soon as I dive into the camera world, learn, the 3 settings that you got to know, and lighting, you just improve so fast, especially when you have work. I had work. I had like 10 to 15 shoots a month, so I wasn't like killing it monetarily, but I was working, and some companies were funding my training as a photographer, as a food photographer, and later on a video editor, right? So I wasn't like, swimming in money. It was always a cash flow issue. It was always, I'm waiting to get paid and I need the money now. But I was getting good, right? I knew how to make food look good and work with food. I was just not going to do like the food stylist fake shit like glue and the cereal shit. I was going to make real food and make it look good, right? So that when it was real, and it would make you want to eat it, and those type of things, and figuring out how to make it look good in shot,
authentic,
and not use tricks, would help with the show, right? So I could take good photos of the food that I'm doing on the show. So that was really the thing. And the problem with that was I kind of got, I kind of worked my way up and then lose a client. I try and ask for more money, and I'd get too expensive. And I was giving content to brands, and they didn't know what to do with it, right? Okay. So I think at around 2017, the end of 2017, like fall, I got a big pasta brand who had 5 or 6 regional pastas, right? And they wanted me to create content for all of them. It's huge money for me at the time, more than I had ever made by a long shot, a month. And it was a retainer type deal. So I was like really happy. I was engaged at the time. I was with somebody for 6 years, and I had been engaged for 6 months. We were 6 months away from our wedding. And then December of 2017, they hired a new marketing person and canceled all further marketing activities. So I essentially, my business essentially income went to like maybe a couple thousand a month from from Bright Farms, the company you mentioned.
Yep.
And then
do we like Bright Farms?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, good.
They floated me for a long time.
Good. I like Bright Farms. Shout out Bright Farms.
There are a few companies that just like, they gave me work and a shot when I needed it the most and kept me alive, and they are one of them.
Excellent.
And then a month after that, in January of 2018, my engagement broke off. So it's like literally my life fucking fell apart in the course of a month from hero to zero. And I moved back home, and I think within a few weeks, I read, I think Gary Vaynerchuk had a book where it was just like all of the people who had read his first book and what they had done. Like he wrote a new book that was just like examples of people killing it. And I was just reading all of these crazy, these are some genuinely like on paper, stupid ideas. Make no sense. No one would ever suggest that they were good business ideas, and they were fucking killing it. And I'm sitting here like crying in bed being like, what the fuck I could do this. And I looked back at my life, and I realized like I'm a chef. I'm a food photographer. I'm a video producer. I have history. I have perspective. I have a story. I have an opinion on things. I have ways of doing things. Like I was fucking built for this. And so, and I'd always wanted to do YouTube. Like it's not like I was watching the growth of YouTube and was ignorant of like its power and what people were doing on it. I was just like, I know you kind of had to go really hard with it. And I was shy. I was like, nobody in my life would have told me I was good on camera or should be a personality in public. And so, it required me having literally no other option. I think it was sort of like, I don't literally have anything going on. If I were to ever do anything bold and put all my eggs into one basket that I felt like I could do. And I know it's like so crazy at the time. Like, think about it. Think about the context of what had just happened in my life.
Yeah.
I'm sitting here telling my family I'm going to start a great cooking channel on YouTube. Everyone's like, oh my God, like he's going to ruin his fucking life.
He's really lost it at this point.
Yeah. And so, but at the time I just felt so good about it. I was like, this is it. I was like, I've now become a mature enough human where it's like, I don't care about popularity or views or fame, like kill me for fame. Like, I don't care about any of that. Like, I had a reason to exist in this world. And that was to make sure more people are cooking today with confidence than there were yesterday. And I was like, if I could just live by that mantra, at least with this iteration of the show, I have nothing to be ashamed of, right? This is not like something where you should be shameful of. This is like honest work. And if I can just put enough energy into it and focus and figure out a way to survive until I could make a little bit of money off of this, this was what I was going to do. And I was able to survive off Bright Farms for a little bit. They ended up ditching me after a while. Like, it had run its course. And then another company, S&S Grills, a small grill company that makes fantastic products. They gave me a shot to make videos. I had built enough credit in the internet for them to pay me to make videos for his channel. And so that really floated me. That and credit card debt floated me up until about a year and a half ago.
You got to believe in the risk that you're taking, right? If you didn't,
that's a gamble.
If you didn't have that and you didn't have the passion and see the results, then there was no reason to go.
My parents trained me to hate debt. Don't accumulate credit card debt. Like, that's bad. Like, have credit and have good credit and all that kind of stuff. They taught me that, but like, don't run like large balances and stuff like that. So my whole life I've been averse to it. Like, keep a really low balance. Like, I was always really good, but for some reason, like, I was just, I wasn't going crazy. I had accumulated at its peak $20,000 in debt, and
sizable. I mean, anyway, yeah.
And it honestly, it just didn't bother me. I don't know what it was. Like, it wasn't something I was worried about. I knew I was on a trajectory. I was like, just keep going. You know what I mean? I could look at numbers and sort of plan out. Just keep going, keep pushing, and you will get there. And you just keep your head down. You sacrifice having a social life and doing things and worrying about what's going on with the world outside. You don't know. You work. You sit your head's down and you are working for years. You know what I mean? That is the mindset. Is everyone thinks it's glitz and glamour. This is just work. You just are sitting down now and you are grinding. You're hitting the pavement and you're doing the dirty work right now.
This couldn't be a better transition, and also a cliche, a big cliche. And it's a cliche for a reason, that overnight success takes 10 years. Overnight success is 10 years. You look where we are today. We talk about your YouTube channel now. We're looking at 555,000 subscribers. Keeps going up. 287 videos. I mean, you've been on YouTube since February 11th, 2018, 39 million views. You got five videos over 1 million views. It doesn't happen because of you just popped. It's because you did overnight. The overnight success. And what I mean by overnight success is the last 10, 12, 13 years you've been grinding and doing it.
Yeah.
What's it like? What's it like for you to kind of step now? We're going to current. We're jumping into the current space, and where you see it, you kind of always believed in yourself. You always knew you had it.
I mean, I've always believed in myself. Like, I've always had, I've always allowed myself to dream and being like, you could do that. Like, when I'm in the endeavor, like with the show, I'm vacillating between, you're doing amazing and you suck shit. And and I think that's not like it. That is the nature of allowing the machine to control your emotions, right? Like based on the ebb and the flows and the interactions you have and all that kind of stuff, it influences how you feel about yourself. That's just you being human, being thrusted into this world. When you first start to get views and you have everyone telling you you're a piece of shit for the first time, you're like, "Ooh, there's a dark side here." You know what I mean? And it's like I'm a pretty mature guy. Like I'm
like what
able
I walk
to
into.
I'm able to let it bounce off me, but after a while, it starts to fester, right? So you have to figure out a way to kind of create this stasis of like, I'm not as good as I think I am, and I'm not as bad as they say I am. I am somewhere in the middle. I'm working, you know what I mean? Like I'm working to find this kind of nice balance of how I feel about what I'm doing, and that is healthy, right? I don't love feeling like having periods of being really down. Like the first 6 months of this year, I had a really down feeling up until recently. And I don't like that. You know, I'm trying to figure out a way to stay like balanced, right? So that I can just be a healthy creator. Like right now I scaled back to 1 video a week, and I was like, I want to see what it feels like to not rush, right? Like, can I make better videos if I just not rush and to make more videos, because more videos make my channel do better. Like maybe better videos make my channel do better too. You know what I mean? So it's like
the dichotomy between the two.
Let me slow down. Let me feel better about myself. I'm running 3 miles a day now. I've never done that in my life.
Heck yeah.
I'm allowing myself to like not work myself to death or stress. Like it's not even the work. I think that kills a lot of people is stress. And it's that feeling that bipolar feeling of yourself and your self-image that a lot of people have, that gets exhausting, right? But if I'm just in this period of like, I'm working, I got this thing going, things in my head, I'm thinking about the business in a healthy way, and then I'm taking care of myself, I'm eating right, I'm exercising, then let's rebuild. Like maybe I can rebuild back up to 2 videos in a healthy way. And then the future for me is like, how do I grow this with a team? It's really hard for me to imagine somebody editing my videos because, like I said, when I'm present in the testing of the recipe, how can I communicate all of that stuff to the editor without it being more work or taking more time or being less efficient? And that's a really hard thing to crack. Like besides YouTube, growing a personnel organization in the world is something I'm really struggling to wrap my head around.
We hear this. We hear this with everyone, especially when it comes to the editing piece. It's very difficult to say, hey, this has been my vision and I've been doing this for X amount of years. And now I'm going to hand it off to somebody who it's so hard. You kind of have to be in the moment. We talked to a couple guys, that do mountain biking. They film whatever videos. And it's like, you kind of have to be along. You got to be mountain biking that trail with me to kind of understand the vibe of the trail. It's kind of like, you got to be along with me with that recipe to understand like, hey, here's where you may slip up. Here's where you do that.
Especially for me, because there's such an imperative on that.
And it's going to be such a slow down to speed up, where you'd have to slow down so much to be able to get an editor whose quality and understands your vision to be able to speed up and make it quicker. So it's it's that slow down to speed up mentality. It's very strange. And it's very difficult to comprehend from a video editing and very personal. What you do is personal, so it's very difficult to do that.
And you voice over it. So it's like, it's got to be difficult to say like, okay, I can't voice over until the edit's done. But then does it mean when I'm filming, I have to give the editor notes like, hey, cut that shot out, cut that. Why? Because I'm going to cut it. And then if I'm editing it, then I at least know what to say. I can start to build the script in my head. All those things I'm sure go through your head when you're doing it. Correct me if I'm wrong there.
There's just so much. It's like the way that I shoot is just not the way that a lot of videographers shoot.
Yeah.
I let the cameras roll, right? So there's me going in and I'm like, okay, I need to cut out most of this junk, but there's like this little moment I need to grab where an editor might see a bunch of junk and cut it all out. And I've had this where I've tested people and I'm like, where is this thing? Where's this clip? And it's like, it's edited out. I have to then go re-edit the whole video.
You're like, that's the thumbnail.
it's just like I can't wrap my head around how it's going to happen, but that's really the future. Is like people will help grow the channel and the business, and I need to build to that.
But I like what you're doing, where you're taking the mental health approach too, where like I think exercising, and Mike and I both are runners. We follow each other on Strava, and I think exercising is like especially a key when you're in a rut. It's like get out there, exercise, eat right, make yourself feel better, feel yourself correctly, to where that when you go into it, you're going over the positive. Like you outran the rain cloud, and you got plenty of clear space to work in. You know what I mean? I think that's a very important thing to do. Very important. It's underrated, especially when it comes to YouTube, because you're so used to views, clicks, algorithms, bullshit. It's like just like there's got to be how do you, when something encompasses your life that much, where you're building that brand, that business, that channel, and things that are to come, it's important to get out there. It's important to get out there. And
I think a lot of
choices.
I think a lot of creators would benefit from like intense exercise. I mean, it's like I've been running in the 95-degree weather. Like I'm not used to running that much in that kind of heat, but I'm like, it's like a pain I like, right? Like it's almost like I don't want it to get cold. It's almost like I want to feel the pain of the heat while and like push myself and push myself so hard. By the time like I get back up there, I'm like, I need to cool down. You have to like shower. You got to stretch and cool down. You got to make yourself a good meal because you just worked so hard. And it really like just it fit. Everything starts to fit together and connect in a way. And it's just nice to feel good. I mean, I'm able 100%. To like now eat a donut and not feel like it weighs on me. I'm like, I want
a donut. Shit, make some beignets. You know what I mean?
Especially after last year, where I just kind of indulged on like lots of carbs, anything. Yeah,
been there. I'm gonna use the restroom real quick. I'll be right back. I also did wear I did wear my crawdad shirt though for this specifically. I'll be right back. I'm gonna use the restroom.
Yeah. So Stephen, we're talking about YouTube and coming up with all these ideas, editing videos, all these kind of pressures that go into it that people don't really understand. Like committing to 2 videos a week. Like we committed to Wednesdays, but I really think I need to rearrange my thought process and say, we're going to give you 1 podcast a week, whatever day that comes out on, it comes out on. Right. And so you come up with these, but there's a whole nother stressor. And we talked about this before we started, which I think you're fantastic at. And I want to learn a little bit more about the titling that you do. So not only do you have to come up with the content, the ideas, you got to whiteboard things. You got to figure out, okay, I'm going to post, in a month, 8 videos. It's a lot of content to edit, create, and do. Then you got to come up with.
Now that I'm down to 4, that's 8 seems ridiculous. Like I don't know how I can get back to 8.
I mean, think about 8 titles, 8 thumbnails. Not even thinking about A/B testing. So in reality, when you were in the prime of 8, you were doing 16 thumbnails, 16 titles. That's nuts. Yeah,
but I wasn't thinking about them the way that I am now, and that's the difference. Is that extra? You really need another day, at least for me to percolate. When you think about it, anything I do, there's an obvious, how do you make fish and chips?
Right.
But then there's 50 other ways to think about it. And then when you realize, like, if you think about it in different ways, then the video itself might change. So then you need to create the thumbnail and the title before you even make the video, right? Because if there's a claim you're making in the video or in the title, you need to address that in the video. You can't afterwards be like, oh, wouldn't this be such a great video for this run-of-the-mill video? You know what I mean? So
you can only do the clickbait so many times, right? They can only grow you so many times. You still have to have true content that the returners are come back. Because we talked about this earlier too, I think, when we were saying, a percentage of your subscribers are truly the people who are watching your videos. And the clickbait gets you that number, the average subscriber, to grow. But you need to fill your base. You need to give people.
The reason why that's exactly why this matters so much, is because your subscribers are not seeing your content the way that they should or the way that they're used to. So when you're making videos, and this took me a long time to realize, was you're not making them for your subscribers, unfortunately and sadly. I don't like that reality. But the reality is, you guys aren't watching my videos. You know what I mean? Like, I have to continually, and every video, find new subscribers. So that means I have to figure out a way for you to click. And I mean, for the majority of my channel, I have not done this well. And to me, when you just told me this is something I do well, I'm self-conscious about it. I don't think I do it well. And it's something that like I've realized, like if I could just scale down and then allow myself to really think about these titles for, I'm saying a day, but I'm really thinking about them a week ahead. Like if I look at the schedule of videos that I have planned going forward, I'm thinking about all of them now. You know what I mean? Like how can I nail that ahead of time so it's one less stressor, so I can just go figure out and make that video. Now, like before, the video was a big stress, like nailing the thumbnail still is. Like that's always a big thing for me because I don't use tricks and food dies really quickly. But now the new stress is the title going to be right? And then how do I get the thumbnail? And those things are of equal weight as the quality of the video. And it's really hard to wrap my head around that. And I struggle a lot. Well, I think it's unfair, if I want to be a little kid about it, but, because what it does is there's so much you already have to know. And now you have to be a graphic designer and then like a PR, like you have to have a journal. I'm terrible with the word, you know what I mean? So it's like these things I really have to like put a lot of effort behind, put a lot of time behind.
Well, my favorite
Well, it's also like, and Mike, real quick, but it's also like, I mean, to be honest, there's a lot of like, I mean, you can really dive into as somebody who's self-taught in like a Adobe like this, the entire suite. It's like going into Photoshop and Illustrator, and if you really want to dive in and make some really good, thumbnails and stuff, it's like that's still a little bit more time, color grading on the edits, a thumbnail. I mean, you could spend, I don't know how much time you spend on a thumbnail, but I could see myself just sitting over a thumbnail for like 2 hours being like, I don't think it's right yet.
Your thumbnails are beautiful. I mean, like I'm looking at your channel right now, and I'm scrolling through, and there's a whole Italian recipe section, and the pictures literally the first one, my all capitals meatball method has one trick. I'm like, shoot, I got to watch that for the trick. Once again, your titling is fantastic because I'm like, okay, I got to get this trick. But then there is a perfect circle of flour around the pasta, or maybe cheese. Is it Parmesan cheese? I'm gonna guess it's cheese.
Was it the pizza dough?
It's the meatball method of
Parmesan cheese.
Yeah, but it's like a perfect circle. So it's like it's curated. You did a great job.
You needed the cheese, otherwise that's when I used the cutting board for plating. So there's all these things I had to do to make a thing pop on a cutting board.
Yeah.
So it's like the cheese was almost like the
contrast. Gotta have contrast.
Well, then my going back to the titles. All right. So my favorite title I've seen on YouTube in a super long time is warning, this video will make you hungry. And then I don't know what the rest of the titles, but I was like, that is brilliant. Like that is such an intriguing title to bring someone into.
It's trial and error. And a lot of these things are done 7 months, a year later, right? I'll go back and change titles on videos.
Oh, really?
If you go back and you adjust your videos, change thumbnails, change titles, YouTube re-indexes the video as if it was just newly posted.
Really?
So it'll give it another shot.
Okay.
Right? Yeah. And sometimes it doesn't work, but like I can attribute the growth of my channel initially to changing the title of the cacio pepe video. What I was doing was like a simple naming convention, all uppercase, cacio pepe. And then what I did was, I don't even know why. I think I just had conversations with friends to like just be more experimental with titles and thumbnails. And I changed it to, in the beginning, it's all lowercase, how to make, and then in all uppercase, real cacio pepe.
Oh, yeah.
And that changed, I think 2 or 3 months after I made that change, the channel took off. It was served up to lots of like Italians in Italy, and they all loved it. They were like, "Oh, like I was ready to destroy you, but now I respect you." And that was a really cool moment for me. It was like my first real kind of come up. And every morning I would like peek at my phone, terrified to find comments of hate. And there were just a lot of Italians that were like, hey, much respect. Like, thank you for respecting
the community coming back.
That's amazing.
And yeah, I mean, eventually, I think a month later, the hate started to come.
Of course,
that's also one of the best pastas of all time, and it's actually easy to make. If you already got the pasta, it's easy to make. Pasta on your own. I mean, come on, and the carbonara's. I mean, that's right behind it in views, just almost 2 million as well. And you know what? I might have watched a few of these. I might have made a couple of my recipes over the last couple of years based off of these. But
that's the whole idea.
The Italian homage. I mean, it's fantastic. You know what I mean?
I just wanted there to be a clear place for people in America who might be misunderstood about pasta. And this is coming from somebody who was, for the most part, like, you know, my journey in Italian food was a lot based in just me making stuff up and not
wasn't from
learning.
Your family?
I didn't grow up with the Sunday
like traditional classic. Yeah.
I mean, I had family recipes, but like for me, I would just kind of freestyle. I wasn't obeying, you know, I would use pasta water. It's not something like that, but like I wasn't educated in the world of what pasta was in Italy and why it was. Yeah. And once I started to study that, the why and all of these things and the beauty in learning that, right? When you learn,
you're getting a little bit of roots. You're getting a little roots in the education.
You understand what the area of Italy was and the micro regionality of everywhere and the resource. Like you understand, Italian cooking is based off of what's available to you. And then when you understand that and you learn the recipes, like cacio pepe is pecorino romano and pepper. And why is there not olive oil? Or, you know, you have to ask yourself that, like, you have Roman shepherds. Why? Like, they're carrying these things,
the history
on donkeys or the sheep, and the olive oil is heavy, so they're not going to carry olive oil. So they're going to keep a few things on there, and they need to make food for themselves whenever they get to the top of the hill or whatever the thing. You know what I mean? Like you imagine these scenarios, like, oh, that makes so much sense. Like even if it's not like there's lots of stories, right, about Italian food. Like maybe they're not all super accurate, right? But what they do is they paint this story in your head that makes you understand a dish on a deeper level, so that you're not this American person trying to make this beautiful idea. Like you're going to call it this one thing, but you're not making the thing you're calling it. And like for me, it's just like, I wanted people to learn why first. Like, I don't care if you take these things and you go wild with them, but you got to understand where they come from before you start to mess around. Like what I kept seeing is like these people who were home cooks that had no base in knowledge. And then all of a sudden, like they take a leap, right? To I'm a creative genius, but it's like, no, you're not. You don't understand what's going on. If you just start down here and work your way up, you will be a genius in your own right, but you'll be able to build in a competent way. You know, you learn these things step by step and you can build on it like I did growing up my whole life, right? To the point where you do it the right way. And then you're going to be so happy and so skilled at what you do. You're going to have a lifetime of joy.
And when you get to that level, once you get to that level, that's when you can start to kind of play. That's when you can start to have fun. That's when you can start to be a little bit more of an artist when it comes to it. I've been making sourdough. I want to just make it. I just want to disclaim that I've been making it far before the pandemic. And when the flour shortage hit, I almost killed a bunch of people. So I'll let you know I've been making sourdough for a very long time. Sourdough is one of those things that sourdough you only get by walking uphill in sand the whole way. It's bullshit the entire time. You're making brick after brick after brick. You're screwing it up. Your starter sucks. You can't get the starter timing right. You can't do it right. Nothing's working. You know, you're not getting your hydration levels right. You're putting in too much salt. You're putting the salt in at the wrong time. You do the whole thing. But once you get it, once you understand it, once you learn how to play within that arena, it's fantastic. You can toy around. You can do whatever you want. I can make beautiful loaves of bread now only because I've gone through 3.5 years of creating what was not very good. But if you have to Like you have to earn your stripes with these types of things. You have to practice. You have to go through it. You have to learn. If you don't, then you don't understand these certain, facets that come through with the cooking process. You probably see the same thing with pasta. It's like everyone can make pasta that's okay, but can you make great pasta? Can you make authentic pasta? You know what I mean? And I feel like you kind of grab on some of those.
Yeah, I mean, I just try and take a different approach. It's so hard these days because everybody is, it's all about the best. I'm the best. I make the best. It's the best. Don't go anywhere else. This McDonald's, they fucking stupid. I'm better. You know what I mean? It's all this competition to outdo one another. And for me, it's more like the only best I want to be is the best teacher. I want to make sure that whatever you want to make that I'm teaching you, if you come to me, you trust that I might explain it to you in a way that you might have an aha moment. Like that's what
You're going to hold my hand the way through it, and you're going to teach me something.
If you're a master chef, you might look at my channel and be like, why are you wasting your time talking about all this shit? Because you just get it, right? The things that I talk about benefit the people who don't get it. And
do you know what the real pandemic? Do you know what the real pandemic is right now? Nobody knows how to fucking cook.
Yeah.
At all. They don't know how to make homemade meals. They can't have their friends over to their house to make just a basic salad or do whatever. That's the real pandemic that's going on.
Well,
right now. A pandemic of losers with no skills. It's like, sorry, this is coming off hot. We flipped
from the 50s. Like now,
very much
men cook more than women.
Not in my house, but in general, I would imagine.
In society, it's almost cool.
I was going to say in the South, like men have always been cooks as well. And that's why I'm wearing the crawfish shirt. It's like, because I think I learned most of my cooking from my father is from, he's from Baton Rouge in New Orleans. And it's like to be down there and be a man. If you move to Louisiana and you're like, oh, I don't cook. The other guy's like, what do you mean you don't cook?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And we're in a pandemic of people who do not cook. But yeah, sorry.
Yeah, it is something. I think you're right. It is something like, right. It is, but it's all based in that thing like, oh, you're 35, you just had a kid. What do you mean you can't fucking grill a steak? There was when I was with my ex, like one of her sisters was dating a guy, and we went over to their house, and they had just bought a grill, and I remember the guy couldn't figure out how to install the propane tank. And
what?
We're in a
I'm not
space.
I'm not one to like put somebody down to their face, but in my
trying
head,
to be nice. You're trying to be nice.
What the fuck is wrong with this guy?
It is like, do you not know how to put your gas cap back on your car? Like,
you've never done this before? And if this is what you can't do, then how are you going to change a tire? You know what I mean? Or do anything?
How are you going to look after my fiance's sister? How are you going to look after my fiance's sister? You can't even.
I think the man of the house should be as much in the kitchen as the woman. I don't think anybody has to be in the kitchen, but I think if both parents know how to cook, it's just always the kid's going to get a good meal, right? Like your job as a parent is to know how to feed your family. You have to. This isn't the 90s where I don't know if I'm assuming you guys are around 100%. My age.
I'm a latchkey kid.
We grew up on McDonald's. I grew up eating McDonald's. Like that was when you need to feed your kid, you took them to a McDonald's drive-thru.
Yeah, post-soccer
don't fly anymore.
No, absolutely not. No.
I gotta do it right.
I want to go back to YouTube real quick, JP.
Hold on. One just quick note. This is, I think it's important because this is what we're getting at. And what we're getting at is we are in a world where people are so disconnected. I think food brings people together. I think learning how to cook, cooking good food, being nutritious. We're in another pandemic of obesity around here in the United States. These are all really important things. Once you start to cook, you have channels like yours, Stephen, where you can learn how to cook. You can do it as a family. You can do it with your girlfriend, fiance, partner, whatever you want to do. But it's important, I think, to spend time, put things away, and just focus on, making a healthy meal, doing it homemade. And I think it sets a good precedent for the rest of your life, rather than just being like, hey, this is a quick meal we're going to throw on TV.
Yeah, we just got.
That's all I got to say. That's all I got to say.
We just got this really cool thing in I think both of you guys will really appreciate this new technology for kids. So it's like a, how do you describe it? It's like a stool, but it has walls on 3 sides. And so the kid can crawl up into it. And now his chest is at the level of the counter. So my wife is cooking for him.
Kind of experience the food in the process.
So he's watching things get cooked and cut. And then he's like yelling he doesn't really talk. He's 1.5. So he's like yelling at my wife, like yelling about like wanting to eat that thing because he just watched the process. And I think that's something that's really cool that brings it's amazing.
That's all you have to do. Kids want real food.
They do.
They just don't know it exists until you show it them.
Yeah.
And especially if you resist it their entire childhood, they'll grow up being like, what the fuck? Get this vegetable out of here. This is disgusting. No. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, I grew up hating tomatoes. I would serve them, but it was just like, you don't realize like tomatoes are a season. You know what I mean? Like, we've tried to grow a lot of things all year round, and like some things work. You know, lettuce is grown in California all year round. They can ship it to us. Great. Tomatoes, there's a shorter shelf life. So you got to grow it. You got to pull them. You got to grow them in Florida, which they grow in Florida in sand and like slave labor conditions. And then they got to pick them when they're green. It's literally, there's a book called Tomato Land. Everybody should read it. And then they pull them when the tomatoes are green and hard as tennis balls. They ship them all the way
up. I got a bunch of those right now. Yeah, go ahead.
They ship them all the way up to wherever they're going to be, and then they spray them with ethylene or ethylene, I think, which is like a ripening agent. Yeah. It's a chemical ripening agent that makes them turn beautifully red, but in the inside they're pale and tasteless and nutritionless. And everyone who hates tomatoes because of that reason.
Cooking is a gateway to nutrition and finding more nutritional. Like, we always want to go get heirlooms or get all the tomatoes grown out in our like mezzanine on our patio out here, even though we live in an apartment complex. It's a gateway. I think it's like, I became more healthy as soon as I started taking the appreciation of cooking. You know what I mean?
Oh my God. Have you guys seen on Netflix this documentary called Fantastic Fungi?
No,
I just saw it. I just saw it though. And my fiance scrolled past it and I go, that's something I'm into right now.
Oh, dude. It's so much better than the name.
I got it. My buddy is he's the top organic worm. He's the top organic, worm casting soil producer in like the Northwest. And all he does is deal with like fungi, and like his friends have mushroom farms, and they pull.
You start learning about the world of mushrooms. It changes your entire view of the world.
Yep. No, it's very interesting. Also, the largest living organism in the world is a mushroom field, essentially from organic.
The whole world of mycelium, and it's like this is like an intelligent species. And I think everyone just looks at a mushroom, they're like, that might kill me. But like when you really get past that, you start to realize like, holy shit, mushrooms are like the key to everything.
Yeah, no, it's a strange. Listen, we went off topic a bit. I will say that I just shared a link because I was talking about you were talking about Luca.
Oh yeah,
Mike, who's sitting at the counter. That YouTube link that I just sent here is for Jun's Kitchen. I do recommend that channel, Jun's Kitchen. I think he lives in Japan and he makes food, and his cats are always hanging around him. And it's very entertaining. If you haven't seen it, it's an electric. It's a very funny channel.
It's hard to focus, but that's the kind of thing that I'm talking about. So like they crawl into that, but yeah. So we did get a little off topic, but the tomato land thing that you just talked about, I just watched a video on YouTube about a guy who was talking about how like all of how we farm and how we ship produce today, all the nutrition is ripped out of it. So you could eat as much romaine lettuce and tomatoes as you want. You're getting zero nutrition compared to the 50s. But I don't want to go down. That's it. That is for another day. And hey, Stephen, this could be a topic on your podcast that you will start one day. I'd love to hear you talk about how like these kind of things and what you've learned from books that you've read. One thing I want to talk about before we kind of roll it out here is Milestones, right? You've hit some major milestones, which is 10,000 subscribers, 100,000 subscribers, 500,000 subscribers. You have videos, 5 videos over 1 million views, which is a milestone within itself, right? You
And one of them
is one night that you were going to just start a YouTube channel, and they probably thought you were bonkers. But look at you now; you've really come full circle, and you put your whole heart into it. So, can you talk a little bit about those major milestones of like 100,000, even the first 10,000 subscribers, and now having 555,000 and a couple million viewed videos?
Well, you quickly get jaded. I will say that first 1,000 was probably the most meaningful.
Yeah.
And the hardest.
Been there.
Yeah, we're in it.
I'm so grateful for where I am. It's hard, like milestones, it's hard to celebrate them. Like, I passed 500,000 quickly, and it was like, I don't know what to do. You know what I mean? Like, it feels weird to celebrate yourself. I don't think anybody really cares.
It's like your own birthday.
But you should
have a difficulty.
But you should, because these I know we talk about little numbers, right? Subscribers is something, but it is an accomplishment that not many people get to, and it is an earned accomplishment, right? Someone chose to hit that button because they watched one of your videos and felt compelled to say, "Hey, I want to support this guy." So don't see it as like not supporting yourself. You're supporting yourself. Yeah. It is an earned item, and you should be proud of it.
I mean, to be honest, like it kind of is like fake. It kind of feels fake.
Yeah.
Like I see a number, and
you don't get a visual representation of it.
I don't. I'm a visual guy.
You don't see 30,000 people in a crowd.
I don't see 500,000 people outside my window. Like I think
that's a difficulty.
So from a visual standpoint,
a number, it's like it's hard to really have an impact on you, especially once you get to like maybe 100,000. Once you pass 100,000, 200,000, 500,000, I think once you get to after 1 million, that's like another feeling. And then I imagine 2 million, 3 million.
Once you hit 1 million, we're going to podcast at 1 million. So go ahead.
Sorry. Well, what about it's like inflation, right? It's like it's inflation in views, right? Like you reach a certain point and you're like, okay, this is the expectation until you reach a new point. And then that's the expectation. And if you were to fall below that expectation, it would be very drastic. And I think for me, it's really hard to celebrate because in the back of my mind, there's this fear that like, I don't know, this could all end sometime tomorrow. Like it's hard. It's something I probably want to get better at. I imagine if I had like a significant other, I'd probably celebrate it a little bit more. But at some point you just gotta this is my job. You know what I mean? This isn't, a celebration of me. I'm here. I'm providing a utility. I see. So the number is great. And I'm super grateful for everybody who clicked that subscribe button. And for me, it feels fake in a good way. Like it's so humbling and such an honor. But it's, at the end of the day, I got to keep my head level. You know what I mean? I got to, you don't want to think you're too good. And I think numbers can inflate that.
You have accolades outside of the numbers, which show that you are successful, right? You've been shown on ABC, on the news at least 8 times. You have been invited by Casey Neistat and friends to 368 to cook for them. So there are accolades that show, hey, this guy obviously is in New York, in one of the meccas of YouTube. There's so many people who are in New York who are YouTubers and can get those subscribers out of it. But, there are other people outside of the subscribers who are giving you physical validation that you are a successful person. So how does it feel to get, go on ABC and they know who you are and they want to talk to you because you are a celebrity, and that's from Rhett and Link. What is it part of being, cooking for this 368 crew and getting into that incubator and getting into that family?
I mean, it's great. I mean, like I started out with Casey as like an idol, right? I would watch him. He would fuel the fire under my ass to do something. And I'd look up to him, and then, I find myself sitting at a table with meatballs simmering in the background, just chatting with him. And so, those situations, I'm not really good at I'm good at savoring them internally. It's really hard for me to, like, in the moment, think too much. I mean, I play really cool. Yeah, I know you, Casey. It's not like a big, you know what I mean? Like, right. It's really hard for me to like, I navigate this world, and I do things and meet people, and I sort of assume, like, yeah, this is what it should be. Like, if my goal was to do this, and I set out to do this like a business, and my goal was to reach a certain level and to do a certain caliber of work, at some level, when I find myself in some of these situations, I'm like I saw this, like I was envisioning something like this, and I worked, and I put myself in a position to actually be here now. And in that sense, it's really fulfilling and gratifying. And it's those little moments where you're out in the real world, where you're engaging with other people you respect and admire, and then you build those relationships. Like, I think a lot of the future, especially after the year and a half we've had, is feeling more of that, like going out there, feeling more energy, like human energy, meeting more people who are amazing creators, and building relationships with them. It's just about being like savoring these moments, right? It's hard to explain them, but I do savor them and appreciate them. And I don't try and put a lot of pomp and a lot of, gravitas to these things in the moment, because I want to just stay level. I don't want to think like, oh my God, I just did this thing and I'm so great. It's more like, this is part of the plan, and just stay the course and keep your head down and keip working.
That makes sense. It's humility. I mean, it's living that. But I think one thing that's important to realize, especially, and I'm like, this is just coming from a guy who, and his webcam will turn back on. It just died. This happens often. But the thing that I think that's overlooked is how important it is to plant a seed, to learn to cook, to teach someone to cook is one of the most, teaching somebody to cook and teaching them how to do this for the rest of their life and what you're doing. It's like, I think this is one of the most important things, that it's one of the most important skills that somebody can learn. I think it's an important skill that adds into social skills and all these other factors into it. So while you look at viewership and you look at 550,000, subscribers and all this, and it's hard to understand, what you don't realize is that many people are taking the recipes that you're making right now, you're putting on YouTube, and they're cooking for their family. They're cooking for their friends. They're doing this for the people they love, because they're doing it because it's an act of love. And they want to do that, and they want to show that, and they want to experience it with them. So I think I think maybe just look into it a little bit deeper, because learning to cook and having somebody that teaches you to cook to be able to do that is so beyond making videos. And maybe views won't show it, maybe likes won't show it, maybe comments won't show it, and maybe subscribers won't show it. But what will show it is the people who are actually following your recipes, cooking, and then doing it on their own for their families and friends. And I think that's one of the most important things, is you're inspiring people to do it. And I think that, that's all I have to say.
I think one of the most gratifying days of the year are like the holidays, like Thanksgiving and Christmas, when I'm sitting down, probably after I've cooked the meal, and like I'm like I'll tell my mom, be like, Mom, like, God knows how many people are making our meal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
right.
It's a really cool thing. Like my mom's German stuffing recipe, this thing we've had my whole life, like this, it's so esoteric. It's a thing. It's a casado thing. Like, now people are a part of that. And like, I get messages from it, like, your mom's stuffing is great. It's like the coolest thing ever. And that's something that is a nice perk to the job. It's just like people will pepper throughout the year and just say the nicest things to you. And, as much as I sometimes let the negative comments affect me too much. Like, I do find the time to take these comments, and maybe I don't respond to everyone, but when I see it, I do have a moment where I'm like, it's pretty special to be in a position like that.
Well, I just know I know how important it was to me. And it's like, I know how important it is for me to learn, especially from YouTube, of how to cook. So
yeah,
from the YouTube learners of cooks who get out there, whether you're learning how to whether you're learning how to do knife skills or you're learning how to chop a vegetable, it's like, these are the building blocks of certain people's lives that are going to set them on a course to build something better. And I think that's never going to show up. That is an intangible that you'll never be able to measure. Unfortunately, that sucks for you, sucks for your channel, but at the same time, it will reflect a little bit on your channel. But I think it's a reflection of what you're doing, and I think people are going to, that's what I love about what you do.
Here's the thing: is I felt success really early on before I made any money doing this. When I realized people would make the recipes, and I think now I'm able to I make some money and I'm able to live comfortably, which is the first time I've been able to say that, which is definitely lovely. And I'm grateful for that. But it is that connection with people that you're teaching a man to fish. And that's kind of what the goal 100%. Always was. And, I think that everybody, there's no, life can be really fucking dreary. And we've all come really close to that over the last year. But there is something we can do 2-3 times a day, every single fucking day, that could be this moment of pure joy. And that's what I try and instill is let's make these chicken cutlets so fucking good that at the end of this day, when you have your girl or your family around the table, there's fucking chicken cutlets. Yes. This excitement about food that can grace you or whoever you're with or you love every single day.
It gives you a moment.
What else does that? I just if people can just have a little higher expectation for what they eat, then that's sort of what I hope to instill.
Perfect. Yeah. I mean, that's no, I mean, yeah.
And for the validation side of it, so I want to move to one of our last parts of our segment, which is Instagram. Thank you for retagging us on your story.
Appreciate it.
We had over 130 questions I don't know what time did I? What
number.
Time, and I don't want to say. I don't want to say hi. What time did my wife tag you? Because she does all of her social media. It must have been 11. Must have been 11 in the afternoon. And we tagged you, and it is now almost 12 hours later and 130 questions. That's amazing. Thank you so much for that. Before we go there, your young self, we talked about this very early. This is my first note that I wrote down. You wanted to be a director. You've made that. You've made your childhood dream come true. Not many people can say that. And so let's talk about.
I don't know if it's Spielberg quality, but
hey, man, Spielberg started somewhere, right? Look at his early.
Yeah. Hey, get some eyeballs. Get some eyeballs.
Yeah. So, all right, I'm just gonna preface really quickly. There's a lot of questions. We're gonna ask 3 questions.
Shout out Gremlins.
Yeah,
it was Gremlins Spielberg.
It might have been.
I think Spielberg was Gremlins.
So.
You don't think so?
I was more of an
JP's gonna fact check
Jurassic Park.
Oh yeah, then he did. Spielberg did Gremlins.
The best Jurassic Park entire thing that I know. A fact is, and we're getting off topic here. Is the storm in the second one? I think it's the second one. There's that massive.
You watched the movies that made us, didn't you?
Yeah, of course.
No, I don't know what he's talking about. I'm a Jurassic Park guy. I don't know what he's going to talk about. But also, Mike's wife tried to buy a Jeep Wrangler that was all Jurassic Park.
No. I told you I was going to buy that for her. And
that's what it was because I saw it in Seattle. I saw it in Seattle. Sorry.
But so my favorite fact is they were on Maui filming, I think Jurassic Park 1, but with the big storms coming in, the guy's gonna take out the samples. That was one of the first times a hurricane had gone to the island in 40 years. So they flew the entire team to Kauai. all the rain in those scenes is real. That's a brilliant Spielberg. Like, hey, we got to catch this as a storm. Off topic, but I love Jurassic Park. So is my wife.
Oh, we're big time. And Gremlins was not Steven Spielberg. I might have been thinking of another one, so I'll have to revert back, and I'll just pull out of this.
All right. Well, speaking of my wife and her love for this,
let's go. Let's go Instagram. Let's go social media. Let's talk about the questions. We got a couple coming for Steven right now. Not another cooking show. What do we get?
Okay. So,
and by the way, do you want me to preface it for you? I'll go ahead and say it for you. Please. We are not responsible for reading your Instagram tagline's wrong. If your username sucks and we can't read it, that's not on us. Mike tries his best, and we do it every episode. So just give us a break.
I'm also,
that's about the nicest way I can put it.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
And also sorry for saying if your Instagram name sucks, because we also appreciate you messaging in. So
thanks so much for putting time into this and sending us a question. We can't answer them all today, but I will answer 3 of them. And unfortunately, it is actually
go for today. We'll
figure it out. So, my Katerina Saba, my wife, she needs to change her last name. Hopefully she listens to this point.
Yeah, it's Weinstein now.
I know, right? She said, "What's a cooking pet peeve of yours?"
Oh man,
that was a good question.
And I tell you, I already know that she has another question that she screenshotted and sent to me and said, "You have to ask this." So that's why I think we need another 4th.
Oh,
I think adding pasta water obligatorily to tomato sauce.
Oh,
okay.
Unpack that for me, please.
So everyone knows pasta water is used to make pasta sauce,
starch,
right?
A lot of starch in there. From traditional noodles, you're going to get a lot of starch in there. Yeah, go ahead.
Sure. With a pasta sauce, if when you open a can of tomatoes, like, the act of making a tomato sauce is essentially cooking water out of the can of tomatoes, or the tomato juice, or the tomato. So you're reducing it. So when you go and you've got your tomatoes sauce perfectly reduced, why would you add water back to it? The sauce is created. You don't need to create a sauce. You just need to add pasta to it. So it's an example of knowing why, right? Why do you do something?
And I want to know this why, because I occasionally will do this as well.
Okay. Say your sauce is over reduced.
Yeah.
Add pasta water. But if your sauce is perfect, why add pasta water? You've just thrown it out of whack.
Yeah.
But so
will that way you and from your experience, Stephen, if somebody is just adding pasta water because somebody told them to, and maybe their pasta was cooked at a higher heat and reduced quicker, so they were like, or they didn't have it as high and it didn't reduce as quick, and they add more pasta water in, and then they're wondering why their sauce isn't sticking to their noodles. Do you think this could be one of the reasons?
Yeah, of course. Sauce won't stick to the pasta if it's not thick enough. So if you've gone through the effort to reduce the sauce properly, then you reintroduce more water to it, and now it's looser. You then have to cook it again. It's, like the pasta water helps to create a sauce that is nascent, right? It's not existent yet. And, there are, I personally think it's like a blind thing. It's like, I see this done, so I should do it. And I think there's think about it. Does it need water? I don't.
When should you do? That's right. When should you do it? And I'd appreciate if you kind of did pasta hands. I appreciate if you did a little more Italian talk at me while you answer.
Am I doing that? I don't even know.
Because you're coming out. You're hitting me hard here, and I like that. But I think you're right. I think it's like, when's the right time?
You need pasta water when you're trying to make oil and water into one in an aglio olio, right? That's when you need it.
Because you need that immersion. You kind of need that blend.
Yeah. I mean, you just don't need it. Tomato sauce is kind of a different thing. I'd say like it's tomato sauce. The pasta water for tomato sauce is simply used as a crutch to get it back to life.
Okay. You've heard it here first. Know when to use your pasta water. If your pasta is perfect, do not use your pasta water. And if you add pasta water in and it's not perfect, obviously boil it back down. Not boil
Here's
it down.
The thing. Here's
Simmer
the thing.
it down.
You gotta
back
cook,
down.
Right? Stop following the recipe. Just cook. Like use your judgment. You gotta look. You gotta see. You have to be in the moment.
Yeah. There could not be a better explanation than that, because there are so many variables that take place within cooking. So when you have all these variables in place, what really matters is kind of the visualization and the understanding of what you are doing. And if it sucks now, then do it 10 more times. And
Somebody
if it sucks,
might make
then
that
do it
pasta
10
sauce.
more times.
Somebody might make my pasta sauce, right? But use a pureed passata that is perfectly thickened.
You
so they'll
idiot.
cook it. So they'll cook it, right? And then they'll over-reduce it. They'll over-reduce it, and then they will need pasta water.
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's not so black and white, right? What I do see is
it's art.
Every instance is add pasta water to the tomato sauce with no explanation why you would or wouldn't do it.
That's reckless.
Yeah, you're just like,
fucking
this
reckless.
is happening. Yeah, it's just gonna happen.
Would you just add more bleach to a cleaning solution? I don't think so.
Yeah, bleach makes it cleaner. Science. Come on.
That was a terrible reference. I'll workshop that.
Yeah, definitely don't put bleach.
Sorry, that will.
You didn't hear it. All right, I'm going to move to the next question.
Arsenic's the one you want.
Grizzly Baru. I'm going to butcher that name. Why don't you use cast iron often? And what kind of metal are the pans you have? The crisping is so nice.
Second most viewed video on his channel is how to properly season a cast iron skillet.
Yep. Yes, I do use. I'll use a cast iron for meats that I need seared really well. Other than that, I like using other pans. I mean, a pan is an ergonomic thing. Like I think about the handle, right? It's what is the shape of the actual kind of.
Is it going to steam the food?
Yeah. The basin of it.
Is it good for flipping? Does it have a straight edge or a curved edge, or like a sloped edge? All of these things, like I have all different pans, and depending on what I'm cooking or how much space I need, I make a decision based on that. And usually, what I use is most of the pans you see for most things that are like a metal pan. It's a stainless steel. Aluminum core pan. So the core is aluminum, which is really good at conducting heat, but it doesn't hold on to it well. And then the stainless steel will take what the aluminum conducted and hold and distribute it and make it easy to clean, unlike cast iron.
Okay. That makes sense. That is the physical component.
It's the middle ground, right? It's the user-friendly cast iron kind of solution.
Yeah.
You can cook a steak on it, no problem. It's still good. You don't need to get all clad. All clad just means like stainless clad aluminum. You got
a brand we should plug?
I just did a sponsorship for Meeson.
There it is. You heard it here first. Meeson.
So, Made In's great. Meeson's great. To go direct to consumer, don't go to Williams Sonoma and buy it. There are companies that just make great. They make great pans. That's what the company does. So and they do it at affordable prices.
Did you say pan or Pam?
Panned.
Pan.
Did you say pan? Did you say pan or Pam?
Pan.
Is it pan or Pam?
It's a D, soft D on.
Sorry, that's an Office reference.
No, come on. That is a
that's that
stepbrother moment. Pan. Hold on. When John C. Reilly pops out from behind, he's like, I'm gonna just hop in on this. He's like, why are you guys interviewing as a team? Sorry, we're out of here.
Sorry.
Final question comes from two people. It's Jay Lemon and Mr. Rafiki, something. Your names will be on the screen.
Big Lion King fan. Go ahead.
Yeah. They asked kind of like, what are your cooking equipment that you would recommend? And then Jay asked like 5 or 10 kitchen tools. I don't think we need 5 or 10, but like, what equipment do you recommend a home chef?
I'll tag team if you need me to, Steven.
So like good cutting board. An 8-inch chef's knife. A paring knife.
Mother effer.
Victorinox, $30 a knife, 30, 40 bucks a knife.
Victorinox, it's actually what fishermen use. There's a lot of fishermen. You can go pick up Victorinox. If you go to any of your wholesale places, I don't know what they have out there on the East Coast, but if you go to some wholesale places that have Victorinoxes set up, they are sharp as a mow. Yep. So just do not cut yourself. That's just a warning from.
Don't spend a ton.
We don't want to be liable.
If you don't know how to take care of a knife, don't buy an expensive one. You don't need it.
Bingo, 100%. Or else your friends
you need a food mill. I can't live. I need a food mill for
you going with so you're okay.
Is that for like tomato sauce? Okay.
Yeah, I like what he's doing. Can you ground your own flour in that?
No, but I do have my own flour mill.
Okay, got it. Just but if you want to get into bread, flour mill, you can make some really high protein flours.
What part of my show is like the first 2 years of my show was like no equipment. It was no blenders, no kitchen aids. I would use a hand mixer, right? It was like, you don't need shit. Just cook. Cut the thing with a fucking knife. You know what I mean? Like
we're apartment cooking, almost apartment cooking, almost.
Yeah, you don't need. What do you need? Sure, if you need to blend something and you have no space, get one of those little KitchenAid ones for $30. Blend it. Like,
immersion blender. Just whatever.
Imagine you live in a chop studio and you got to make do with what you have.
I like that.
You know what I mean? Like you when I thought about like grandmas who make pasta 100 years ago, or like the Mexican grandmas who figured out how to make birria tacos. They didn't have shit. Yeah. They had the ground and they threw everything in the ground and they used wooden tools and that's it. So when you ask yourself what tool you need, like maybe start with none, except for the bare minimum.
Use your brain.
and learn from scratch. If you really need a food processor, they're very helpful. Get one. Boxed graters are really important. You can grate cheese, you can grate carrots, shred stuff like that's important.
Instant read thermometer.
Tongs, instant read thermometer, spiders, so you can like pull things out of oil. Pasta, you could pull pasta out of water too and maintain the pasta. So it's just like a good sort of base of tools, like low tech tools. Wooden spoon, wooden spatula, flat wooden spatula.
Big good cutting board that you can cut on, because you need kind of the wood to cut on. Maybe if you want some plastic for some meat or something like that, I like that. But I think I don't. This is a personal thought, Steven. You tell me how you feel, but like I don't think there's a more important tool than understanding how to use a knife correctly and how to go about using a knife correctly.
It's the only way to have control. Otherwise, you throw everything in a food process and it just kind of hits it like it hits a nail with a fucking huge hammer. It just kind of,
that's what I mean? Like,
there's
not everything's a hammer. Not everything's a hammer.
Yeah. I think I kind of butchered that analogy, but it was close enough.
No, I like it.
Stick with it. There's no finesse behind it. You're just using the strength of the tool.
Yeah.
You're squishing rather than slicing.
Sometimes the imperfections in, I'm sure, cutting are what create different textures in your mouth.
Of course. 100%. I mean, like, you can't. Okay. I did a video about pico de gallo and how it's knife skills make it better pico de gallo, because say you cut like a really small piece of tomato and then a really large piece of onion, that's not a good bite. I'm sorry.
It's a bad ratio.
It's a really bad bite. And if you do too much of that and it's all fucking out of whack, then your pico de gallo sucks. I'm sorry. Like it's not that you used different ingredients. We could use the exact same ingredients, the exact amounts, but because your onions are too big and your tomatoes are too small, it sucks.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's what it comes down to. And it's a lot of that, right? Like the reason why I'm like,
I build up to a lot.
the reason why I don't want to be like, I'm not going for like best chef or whatever is like, I'm not trying to be impressive. Like what I just said, that's not impressive. It's just practical, right? And you need to hear it. Maybe you don't want to hear it, or some people don't want to hear it, or their favorite YouTuber says, I don't need to worry about knife skills. I can just do whatever I see fit. It's like, great. Then don't care. Have the lowest bar possible for what your expectation is in the kitchen. But for me, I have a higher expectation. There's a reason why I say it. It's not just to be like, so you can show off and cut things quickly. Yes, it does make prep efficient, but it does there's a reason to do it. Right. And I think if you're going to instruct something, then you have to maybe put behind it a reason to do it or not to do it. If you're going to say you don't need knife skills, tell me why. And you better have a fucking good reason why you're telling people to do things the wrong way.
I'll tell you right now that if I pull up your video and your knife skills are terrible, I'm immediately going to the next recipe video. I have no tolerance for poor knife skills.
It's like me going to a journalist and saying, you don't need proper grammar.
Well,
clip
unfortunately,
clip it.
Social media journalists don't need that, but
clip it. That's like, it couldn't be.
But I agree.
Yeah, but I mean, like, that's it. There's all these fundies that come in.
If you hear that from a person,
talking about practice.
If you hear that from a person, it's because they can't teach it to you.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, Stephen, we said early we wouldn't keep you for 2 hours plus.
I told you it would go beyond.
Yeah. Hey, well, I appreciate this. So,
on me.
I can't thank you enough for the time, and like the journey makes sense to me. I can't wait to see where you go and what comes from your channel. When JP comes and visits me on the East Coast, we are 100% going out and getting a beer with you in the city in person.
Well, we're gonna go cook in the house.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Come over.
I will indulge myself in drinking beer while watching you guys cook and feast.
I'll sous chef.
We can go for a nice run in Central Park.
I collect all these great wines and I don't drink a lot.
Yeah,
so they're all waiting.
Let's do it.
Looking for
well, JP, you want to roll us out here?
Yeah, let's do it. Stephen, thank you so much for being here. Appreciate it. Not another cooking show. And I believe that it's not another cooking show. And that's kind of what you proved tonight. What we do here is essentially, we just want to know and tell the people kind of what you got going on. Tell them where to follow you. Tell them your Patreon, your channels, all these things that they can follow you on. And then what we can expect from you coming up here and the rest of the year and moving forward. Floor is yours.
YouTube, Not Another Cooking Show, patreon.com/ Not Another Cooking Show. I kind of channels in flux. I'm just trying to kind of figure out my thumbnails and titles and spending more time on each video themselves. So I'm just doing one a week every Wednesday. Hopefully in the fall, I can maybe scale it up a little bit. I got some things in the pipe that I'm working on. I have a trip to Italy that I'm planning. And if you're interested, you follow me on social media at The Food Freak. There's going to be stuff in my stories that kind of just explain it all. It's a trip to Italy next year, which is kind of fun and I'm really excited about. But yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to do my thing. I'm trying to figure out how to take on what opportunities to take on next. And hopefully there's a longevity here. So if you want to follow the journey, welcome to tag along.
Cheers. Thank you. Can't thank you enough for being here,
seriously,
man. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Fun conversation. Really nice. Love hearing the story, how you got there. So thank you so much. It was an honor to have you on here.
Seriously.
I had fun.
All the social media that he just said is in the description below, including both of his websites. So check it out. Thank you guys so much for listening and or watching on Totally Tubular podcast. We will be with you, like Stephen said, next week